The Galactic Summit on Nexus Prime was the most prestigious gathering in known space. Representatives from 300 civilizations crowded the crystalline halls, their voices echoing in a cacophony of languages, dialects, and telepathic frequencies. Holographic displays flickered with trade agreements, territorial disputes, and cultural exchanges. Everyone who mattered was there, networking, negotiating, and showcasing their species' achievements. Everyone except Princess Lyra of Zenthari. She stood in the corner of the grand atrium, her luminescent skin shifting through nervous shades of violet and pale blue. Her 4 delicate arms were folded protectively across her chest, and her large amber eyes darted around the room like a frightened creature searching for an escape route. The traditional crown of her people, a living circlet of bioluminescent flowers, dimmed with each passing moment of her anxiety. The other delegates moved around her as if she were invisible. The Krellian Trade Consortium had dismissed her stammered greeting with barely concealed contempt. The Vaxian military attaché had literally turned his back when she approached. Even the usually diplomatic Tellurians had politely but firmly indicated they had more important conversations to attend to. It wasn't personal, Lyra told herself for the 100th time. The Zenthari were a small civilization, recently emerged from isolationism. They controlled no strategic resources, commanded no formidable fleet, and wielded no political influence. In the grand calculus of galactic politics, they simply didn't matter. But that didn't make the rejection hurt any less. Lyra had prepared for months for this summit. She had memorized economic data, studied diplomatic protocols, and rehearsed conversations in 17 different languages. Her father, the Zenthari Emperor, had placed enormous faith in her. "Show them our worth," he had said, his own bioluminescence pulsing with paternal pride. "Show them that the Zenthari deserve a place among the stars." Instead, she had shown them nothing but awkward silences and retreating footsteps. She was considering returning to her quarters when she noticed him. The human sat alone at a corner table in the dining area, eating something that looked disturbingly unappetizing by galactic standards. He was younger than most delegates, perhaps in his late 20s by human reckoning, with unruly brown hair and clothes that seemed deliberately casual compared to the formal attire surrounding him. While others networked and politicked, he simply observed, occasionally making notes on a datapad. Marcus Chen hadn't expected much from the Galactic Summit. As a junior xenoanthropologist from the Human Diplomatic Corps, he was there primarily to observe and file reports. Earth was still relatively new to the galactic community, barely a century since first contact, and humans were still figuring out their place among the stars. What he had observed so far disappointed him. The summit was supposed to be about unity and cooperation, but it was really just another arena for the powerful to consolidate their influence while the weak were marginalized. He had watched smaller delegations being systematically ignored, their concerns dismissed, their representatives treated as little more than decorative furniture. The Zenthari princess was the worst case he'd seen. Marcus had noticed her hours ago, watching as she was repeatedly rebuffed. He had done his research. The Zenthari were a peaceful, scientifically advanced people who had chosen isolation for centuries to preserve their unique ecosystem. Their planet was a biodiversity marvel, home to species found nowhere else in the galaxy. But because they had nothing the major powers wanted, they were treated as irrelevant. It reminded him too much of Earth's own history. He watched as the princess seemed to shrink further into herself, her bioluminescence dimming to almost nothing. Something in Marcus's chest tightened. Maybe it was his anthropological training which had taught him to value all cultures equally. Maybe it was his own species' recent memory of being the newcomers, the unknowns, the ones who didn't quite fit. Or maybe it was simply that he couldn't stand watching someone suffer alone when he could do something about it. Marcus stood up and walked across the atrium. Lyra didn't notice him approaching until he was standing directly in front of her. She looked up, startled, her bioluminescence flickering anxiously through shades of surprised yellow. "Princess Lyra of Zenthari," Marcus said in carefully practiced Zenthari, bowing respectfully. "I'm Marcus Chen, representing Earth. I apologize for the rudeness you've experienced today. Would you honor me with your company?" For a moment, Lyra could only stare. No one had used her language. No one had bowed. No one had asked for her company as if it were a privilege rather than a burden. I, she stammered, her translator struggling to keep up with her flustered thoughts. Marcus smiled gently and extended his hand, a human gesture of friendship and connection. I know this might seem strange. Humans shake hands when we meet. It's a way of saying we come in peace, that we respect each other as equals. May I? Lyra looked at his outstretched hand. She had read about human customs, knew that physical contact was important to their species, a way of building trust and rapport. But reading about it and experiencing it were entirely different things. Slowly, trembling slightly, she extended one of her 4 hands. Marcus's palm was warm against hers, his grip gentle but firm. The contact sent a shock through Lyra's system, not unpleasant, but deeply surprising. She had been alone in the crowd for so long that this simple touch felt like a lifeline thrown to a drowning soul. There, Marcus said softly, still holding her hand. Now we're not strangers anymore. Would you like to tell me about Zenthari? I've read fascinating things about your planet's ecosystem, but I'd love to hear about it from someone who actually lives there. And just like that, something shifted. Lyra's bioluminescence began to brighten, cycling through warmer shades of gold and soft pink. Her other 3 hands unfolded from her defensive posture. For the first time since arriving at the summit, she felt seen. You've read about Zenthari? She asked, her voice stronger now. As much as I could find, Marcus admitted, finally releasing her hand but gesturing to a nearby seating area. Though I'm sure the academic texts don't do it justice. Tell me, is it true that your forests can communicate through bioluminescent patterns? And Lyra began to talk. The transformation was remarkable. The shy, diminished princess who had been invisible to everyone else began to glow, literally and figuratively, as she described her homeworld. She spoke of forests that sang in light, of oceans that pulsed, with the rhythms of their tides, of a civilization that had learned to live in harmony with their planet rather than exploiting it. Marcus listened with genuine fascination, asking questions that showed he actually cared about the answers. He wasn't networking. He wasn't calculating political advantages. He was simply interested in her and her people. Other delegates began to notice. Conversations nearby grew quieter, as sophisticated translation algorithms picked up fragments of Lyra's descriptions. By the time she was explaining Zenthari's unique approach to biotechnology, growing their structures rather than building them, a small crowd had gathered. The Tellurian ambassador who had dismissed her earlier now lingered at the edge of the group, listening intently. The Vaxian military attaché made notes on his datapad. Even the Krellian trade representative seemed interested, but Marcus never once looked at them. His attention remained fixed on Lyra, and his hand, when she had faltered nervously at the growing audience, had found hers again, steadying her. Your biotechnology could revolutionize habitat construction on colony worlds, he said. Has anyone discussed partnership opportunities with you? Lyra's bioluminescence flickered with embarrassment. No one has been interested. Then they're fools, Marcus said bluntly. Earth would be very interested in learning from Zenthari. We're still new to this galactic community, still figuring things out. Maybe that's why we can see value where others only see insignificance. He stood, still holding her hand, and addressed the gathering crowd directly. The Zenthari have knowledge and capabilities that could benefit everyone here. Princess Lyra came to this summit in good faith, hoping to share her people's achievements and learn from others. The fact that she was ignored until now says more about us than it does about her. There was an uncomfortable silence. Then the Tellurian ambassador stepped forward. Perhaps we were hasty, she said carefully. Princess Lyra, would you be willing to present your people's biotechnology to our delegation tomorrow? Others quickly followed, suddenly eager to schedule meetings, propose collaborations, and establish diplomatic relations with Zenthari. Lyra looked at Marcus, her 4 eyes wide with disbelief and gratitude. He squeezed her hand gently and smiled. You did this, he said quietly. I just made sure people were listening. As the summit continued, Lyra never forgot that moment. Not just because it changed Zenthari's position in galactic politics, which it did. Not just because it led to numerous beneficial partnerships, which it also did. She remembered it because in a room full of sophisticated, powerful beings, only one person had seen her. Only one had extended his hand in genuine friendship when everyone else looked away. And that person was human.